Welcome to Talk to Brazil with Tom Reaoch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Welcome to Talk to Brazil, the business connection, a leading business podcast talking about business in the world. I'm Tom Reaoch, an American from Pittsburgh, living in Brazil, known as the king of networking and talking from my podcast studio in Vinhedo, São Paulo, Brazil. Today's guest is Kumbirai Chipadza, and he's joining us from the Hannover, Wolfsburg region of Germany. Kumbirai is founder and CEO of Deutsche Connect, a German-based Afrocentric startup that links African and German businesses and people through B2B matchmaking, market linkages, talent acquisition, and investment. So Kumbirai, welcome to Talk to Brazil, the business connection.
Thank you very much, Tom. Great to be here.
And it's funny how we connected actually through a person in Perth, Australia. So when we talk about business connections and business in the world, it's certainly never ending and non-stopping, right?
True, very, very true. I think the phrase that we are in a global village is now very true.
It's not a village anymore. It's just, it's a global whatever, because a village has the understanding of being small. I live in Vinhedo, which is sort of small. Like maybe 50,000 inhabitants. But the expansion of the world, instead of thinking of a village, you think of a contained atmosphere, right? The world isn't contained anymore. There are no more boundaries.
Yeah, that's true.
Kumbirai, I want to get to, you are also the future founder of Berlin Startup School and ecosystems manager at Afrolynk, right? So what are the opportunities for African entrepreneurs in Germany?
Well, they are quite huge. They're quite big. I mean, we are living in a time and age where, for example, since 2017, the German government enacted what they call the Marshall Plan for Africa, whereby they incentivize German companies that would like to do business in Africa. Secondly, we are living in a time where Africa is becoming one single market, which is the biggest single market in the world, with over 1.3 billion citizens. And that gives a whole new perspective. We are living in a world after the COVID, whereby people can now do business online. People can now do business quicker. Right. You don't have to necessarily travel. So a young person sitting in rural Eastern Cape in South Africa can be doing business with someone in New York City in America. So I think for where most of the time people have been complaining about Africa, young people from Africa, they should embrace the change that we have in the world. They should look at Africa as a land full of opportunity, because there are a lot of problems that need to be solved. As entrepreneurs are always there to solve problems. So I believe that there are a lot of opportunities out there.
Well, that's the secret. The secret to success is solving problems. And many times people live with the problem. Companies live with the problem, right? And many times what you say, this connectivity helps those who solve problems and those who have problems connect. And many times what I've seen, it's not in Brazil, but most places, most business owners or business leaders, they're so highly focused on their business, right? Whatever it is, maybe the technical, they're manufacturing nuts and bolts or whatever, offering a service. And many times they feel they don't have time to look for help. And on the other side, you have people trying to help and they can't find who needs their help. So specific to you, how long have you been in Germany? How's this come about for you? How have you reached your success?
Okay, so I've been in Germany for this will be my 6th year in Germany. And I actually came to Germany by default, so to speak. It was a country that I never thought I would come to until maybe 3 or 4 months before I actually came to Germany. So that's an interesting part of the story. So I also came to Germany because I came as a refugee which is one part of the story. So coming to Germany as a refugee from Africa was very, very difficult. I mean, as a man, it was also a point whereby I was emasculated. I could not do anything at that stage. So, and I came to a country where the moment you mention Germany, people have this vision of Germany that is totally opposite what I experienced. So I want to focus on what I experienced,
right,
not the negative.
Right.
So when I came here, I came with my wife. We were fully embraced in the small village where we went to stay. The people from the local church, they helped us get a place to stay, helped us get clothing and everything. So everyone would ask me, yeah, in Germany, you know, how are you surviving there? Because there were so many connotations behind being in Germany.
Right.
So on the other hand, while the Germans were very helpful to us, a lot of them, they also thought since we're in Africa, maybe we're living in the bush, living with the animals, you know, what they watch on movies, the jungle. They thought
sounds like Brazil. That's the way people talk about Brazil.
Yes,
you
so
go
they
out
also
and catch a
thought
snake or something. Yeah, that's
exactly. They thought it was one big country. You know, they thought Africa was one country. So I felt there was a disconnect between Africans, what Africans thought about Germany, and what also Germans thought about Africa. So the name Deutsche Connect is a connection between Africa and Deutsch being German. So a lot of people also say, but why did you not say Deutsch Africa Connect? But for me, because I'm from the Africa side, I felt I was connecting Africa to Germany. So Deutsch Connect.
Right.
So this is how the name came about. And like I said before, I came to Germany at a time where they were opening up the space to Africa, where they were realizing that Africa is the next big market. So I realized that there was an opportunity and there was a need for more African players, because typically you have a lot of old German men who are the ones who are in the Africa-German trade. You know, there are not a lot of females, there are not a lot of young people, there are not a lot of young Africans as well. So, and lastly, I was always an entrepreneur even before I came to Germany. So I felt that, and I've seen a lot of it, most refugees are actually better business people because they can take risk. Right. They bring a new focus of thinking, a different thinking set. They also bring a new network and a new access to another market into the country that they're coming in. Although it's not easy, but yeah, that is why I started Deutsche Connect.
Well, what you mentioned is absolutely true. You're familiar with risk. Your life was a risk, right? And what we say, you get out of the box thinking. You need to get out of your comfort zone. For whatever reason, you were out of your comfort zone, and you had to find comfort in another place. And whatever those risks were, they became secondary. And principally, I think the hardest thing is to leave your own culture for whatever reason. And whenever you're in another culture, I'm the same thing. I'm an American. I came to Brazil. Obviously, I wasn't forced to come here. But for similar things, you come to cultural shock. I came to a land that I couldn't speak Portuguese. Most people still don't speak English. Habits, generally the same, not so different, but culturally speaking, you need to learn to deal and communicate with people. It's really a one-to-one situation. It's a country to country. But at the end of the day, you're talking to people that you meet in the street, you meet in the shops, you meet in the businesses. And so that basis for conversation and communication, I think, is something that you overcame very quickly.
True. And I mean, it's always difficult learning a new language when you're a bit older. And that's what actually, because coming from a country like, I come from Zimbabwe originally, and we speak English. So when you come to Germany, you expect everyone to speak English, you know, and the Germans are very proud of their own language. So we had to start from zero, you know, in terms of speaking the language as well. And wow, that's another whole new experience. But then it actually also motivated me as part of what we offer as Deutsche Connect. We actually offer German language courses to people who want to come to Germany or who are in Germany, you know. So for every problem, I always believe you should find a solution out of a problem.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. We need to learn to communicate with people in their language.
Exactly.
English is a second language, obviously. Let's call it a neutral business playing field, all right? But to understand the essence, the real drivers for what drive people to look for solutions to their problems, that comes from understanding that. I learned that when I learned Portuguese. That's really when you can communicate. That's really when you are accepted as a communicator. People try to fumble through it, which was my case with English. We tried to understand each other, hand signs, whatever. But once you communicate with a person in their own language, it's a whole different story. And then they say, well, and then they understand that you understand their culture, which is the important thing. But the more we understand any culture, all right, so if I were to go to Africa, it would be the same thing. I would need to understand the local cultures, because there are many of them, and not put everything into one big basket, right? And that's when you reach the level. And I see what your success has been is B2B matchmaking, right? Talent acquisition, because you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
You're plugging people together, right?
Yeah.
And is that a two-way story? Are you helping German companies, or are you just helping the African talent?
No, it's a two-way thing. Like you mentioned, okay, for the B2B matchmaking, I'll give you an example. We did an ecosystem tour to Germany in December of some entrepreneurs from the DRC. The DRC also reminds me a lot of Brazil when I was doing my research, being like a very, very big country, lengthwise, right, but also, with more that can be done in terms of infrastructure development, in terms also of efficiency in urban development. So I was just thinking about it when I was going through, looking at Brazil and Germany. So we did that ecosystem tour. So the African startups, we do a due diligence before they come here. So after they come here, we organize meetings with them, with German companies that are interested in that market. So in that trip, we were able to do deals between startups from the DRC who are in energy and another startup that is in agriculture and infrastructure development. Right. So the German companies wanted to come in with infrastructure development in the DRC. They benefited in that. Similarly, the DRC startups were looking for market in Germany, also benefited. On the talent acquisition, on one hand, there's a pain factor in Africa with pain point whereby there are no jobs for young Africans, which is a fact. So we teach them the German language for them to be able to come to Germany either as social year volunteers, skilled immigrants, or apprenticeships. On the other hand, there is a critical shortage in the German work system, whereby they need 400,000 people per year for jobs, especially in the health sector, in IT, and what they call craftsmen. So we believe in what we call smart migration. And also, we also believe in brain gain, not brain drain. So it's hashtag smart migration, hashtag brain gain, not brain drain. Because you find a lot of people who start saying, these young Africans, why are they going to Germany? There's going to be brain drain in Africa. Yes, in one sense, but you're talking from a country perspective. We are looking from an individual perspective, because everyone has the right to be able to self-develop themselves, to find the best job. I'll give you an example. In my country, a nurse is paid maybe $20 if you exchange the exchange rate of the money per month. But if they come here, they'll be paid 1,800 euro. So is that not the best for that? And once they come here, they learn knowledge and skills. They are able to form a network. They also remit money back home to take care of their family. And they're also helping the country in a way in terms of remittance of foreign currency, So we really believe this is happening whether or not we like it. So that's why we also advocate for smart migration, to say, no, young people, you don't have to go all these illegal routes. There is a way, if you learn the language from your home country, there is a way, if you are qualified, you can be able to come here in a regular manner. So yeah, so in that case, we are solving a pain point in Africa, lack of opportunities. We are solving a pain point in Germany, whereby there is lack of labor force as well.
Well, I think back to what we said. I think each person that does go out, and I agree with you, it's not a brain drain, but each person going out into the world, and today that may be virtually, but that person becomes, in essence, an ambassador from whatever country they represent. And it's a chance and an opportunity, like you said. You can sit people in front of a table of business persons, and that's where understanding, the cultural understanding, not only differences, but similarities. There are more cultural similarities than most people agree to, right?
Yes, that's true.
Everybody looks at what's different, but let's look at what's the same. And what I found, business is basically the same everywhere. All right. The details of how you do business are certainly culturally driven. But at the end of the day, the bottom line for everybody is the bottom line. Right? And how you get to that bottom line, it may be a magnificent dinner, it may be a small cup of coffee, it may be a quick drink of orange juice, I don't know. But how you get to success does have the cultural variations. So in terms of being that ambassador, of going out and seeing what the other culture has to offer, but also taking your own culture with you and showing that culture, that's where our globe can become a village.
Yeah, that's powerful. And just, like you're saying, I was recently chosen at the end of last year as one of 40 African and German young business leaders to accelerate economic cooperation between Germany and Africa under the Agile program from the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. So we were young people from Africa and Germany combined. So at first it was a 3-day boot camp. There was a bit of fighting at the very, very beginning, because there were things that separated us and differences in our cultures, even how you address someone, how you address a woman, or,
right.
But after we removed the shells, the culture and all that, at the end of the day, as business people, we are driven by impact and by profit.
Right.
So what you just mentioned, it makes a lot of sense to say, after you remove the whole cultural aspects, we are still, if you're a business person, you're a business person. No matter which culture you are in, you are still, what is the same is stronger than what divides you at the end of the day. So I actually think that is very important. But also knowing and embracing culture is very important, because I'll give you an example. Since I came to Germany, if it's 9 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock. Today was 11 o'clock. I know you were there like a minute before me, but I was there on time.
You were there on time.
So those are small things that in Germany in Africa, we're still behind in that sense. Someone can come in 10 minutes late and they won't even up. They will laugh and they'll tell you like a silly excuse, So there are things that you learn from other cultures that you need to embrace, that make you better. But I mean, there's no culture that is above other cultures. We learn,
right.
And yeah.
No, I'm laughing because I live that here, right?
Yeah.
Timely
Okay.
Performance in Brazil is secondary.
Okay.
And so if I were to mention, we were supposed to start at 11, and the answer might be, oh, really? Well, yes. But that's the way it goes. But anyway, I think those are the fine tuning. That we need. It's frustrating, obviously, and I've seen that here. Foreign business persons coming to Brazil for fact-finding mission to meet people. Obviously, they come with a schedule, and it's not only Germans who have a schedule. Most people have schedules. Airlines run a schedule, so you expect to get off a plane, you expect to be somewhere, you expect to meet people on time, and that's all part of the plan. When that doesn't happen, unfortunately, people become frustrated very, very, very at the very beginning of a multicultural engagement. So what I tell Brazilians when they go out is you need to understand the local culture. So if you're going to Germany, if you're going to England, take a watch, look at the clock. I learned that once actually I was in Austria. And we got up, we had to be at a meeting, and I was with a Brazilian person. We were going, and we're going to get a train. And at the train station, I asked the person, because, trains are coming, you can't read what's on the train and whatever, and the train was supposed to come at, let's say, 8:17.
Yes.
And I was asking, how will I know which train to get on? And he says, it's the train that stops at 8:17. So you look at your watch, you don't look at what's written on the train. Because at 8:17,
it could be there.
A train will be there.
Yes.
At 8:18, it's leaving, so you better be on that train. And you learn that just doing that, right? So I think that's the fun part, and sometimes it's the frustrating part if you miss the train. But it's a learning experience. And your success then with your people that you help, I'm sure you have a number of success cases. And the fact that you keep evolving at what you're doing, the Afrolynk, the Berlin Startup School. So you're really becoming more organized in what you're doing.
Yeah, like with the Berlin startups. So with the Afrolynk as an ecosystems manager, this is the difficult part about being a refugee in another country now. In terms of getting a job, it's difficult if you don't speak the language. So Afrolynk gave me my first big break, and I always tell any young entrepreneur to say the most important thing when you're still learning is volunteer. Go to an organization that is typically what you want to be, and volunteer. Because you might not be the most qualified person to get into that organization, but if you volunteer, trust me, they want you to work for free. That's okay. So once you are in, then you show what you're made of once you are in the organization.
Right.
Yes.
Well, congratulations. Last week in one of my other podcast programs, I know I interviewed an American, and what we talked about, he's a business person, he's written a book and whatever, but what attracted me to him on LinkedIn was the fact that he has over 40 years of volunteer experience.
Wow.
And what he said basically that, it's something you can give, it's how you learn.
Yeah.
He says and that's where you learn to not to make time, to take time.
Wow.
And that, I agree with you. I said, fantastic approach. Volunteering is a great stepping stone to any success anywhere, as a person, as a business, whatever. So congratulations on that. I think that's a nugget.
Yeah, so I volunteered for Afrolynk before they offered me the job as an ecosystems manager. And from then on, basically, I grew my network because it was now And I'll keep saying I was not qualified for the job to be an ecosystem manager, but I qualified by volunteering and for what I gave during that time. So then my plan was always to start Deutsche Connect, because even when I went to Afrolynk, they knew that. So my boss was called Moses Akwa. He's been helping a lot of young Africans within the ecosystem. And he's been a mentor to me. Then with Berlin Startup School, I realized that, okay, I've done entrepreneurship in Africa, over 10 years experience in the field, but in Germany, it counts for nothing.
Right.
So initially I went to what is called Lit Up, the refugee program for 6 months in Hamburg, and they helped me. It was the German language, how to start a business. So after that, those 6 months, I then registered with Berlin Startup School. I learned with them online. Then after I graduated with Berlin Startup School, because you be founders, then they gave me an opportunity to be their ambassador.
Aha. See?
Yes. So I'm now an ambassador for Berlin Startup School, and I'm happy that now they have an accelerator program whereby they're helping a lot of startups, not even people from migrant background as well. So it's all, I think I like as well. I was going through some of your podcasts, and you are a testimony of what I always keep saying. Your network is your net worth. For me, that is very, very important. So with all these, you talk about Afrolynk, you talk about Berlin Startup School, they gave me breaks, but we are now networked. I can quickly say when I have a program or someone who goes hand in hand with them, I can quickly throw them towards that opportunity. So right. I believe in networking as well. Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. I think we get breaks, right? People offer us breaks, but it is also our social responsibility to offer breaks to others.
True.
And that is the essence. For me, that's the essence of networking. And it's more about, and I've interviewed other people on that, a gentleman who created Givers University. And what he believes is you need to give before you can take. And also to become a qualified giver, his focus is on discernment of relationships. We do need to analyze our relationships and have a classification. And you judge people, and what he says, you judge people by their deeds.
Wow.
So you can't, and I agreed with you, that was enlightening, because many times we judge people from what they've done, but not necessarily it was their deeds that led to doing that. So we do have to meet people at a personal level like we're doing. We have to understand. We have to offer opportunities, and we get our opportunities. Yeah. Right? The fact that we're talking together today is an opportunity that I received from another person in Australia that connected us, right? So that's giving and taking, that's sharing. And I'm sure after today, this will continue. So.
I mean, that's very powerful. And I was just looking, right now, like you said, one of the things we do, we consult for African startups looking for into the German market, people who work for their products or services. But when I started looking and reading about Brazil, that Brazil is like Germany's most important trade partner in Latin America. Right. There's a large number of Germans already based in Brazil. Mm-hmm. There are also, I saw also Brazilian nurses coming to Germany as well. And so there are a lot of connections that can also be done. And this is also something that, when we think about Brazil, for me, the first thing is football. And right now...
Well, I'm laughing again because that's it.
Yeah, and right now, we have a drive whereby it's sort of an Afrocentric drive where we believe that Africans cannot continue to keep asking for investors in Africa from other people. Mm-hmm. Africans have to invest in themselves. Right. So one thing that we'll be doing is calling the African diaspora to invest in young startups where we do the due diligence. Mm-hmm. And one of the first port of calls we thought of was, look, sports people, So it's just an idea. Imagine even people in Brazil, one of the biggest exports Brazil has is their sports football players.
That's true.
So if these football players could also invest in young startups, not necessarily to donate. I don't like donating. I like investing. Right. Where they actually invest their money and they become partners. So let's say we have Vinicius Jr. who's playing in Real Madrid. He invests a certain amount, even $50,000 in a small startup in Brazil, but he becomes the face of that startup.
Right.
So the startup doesn't need to do any marketing because once he becomes the face, So this is something that, and I always connect that, Afrocentrism with Brazil as well. So the moment I was like, I'm going to be talking to someone in Brazil, I said I had to say this.
Well, you have to, because obviously the first thing that comes to mind for most people whenever I say that I'm from Brazil, I've been in Brazil, what have you, it's football, it's soccer. And that's true. And Brazil is an exporter of players throughout the world. But to the same thing, and I agree with you, even Brazilian soccer players, they need, that's up to them. Yeah. But the more they become business persons, all right, and if we look at to the United States, for example, for different stars in basketball, football, baseball, whatever.
Exactly.
They have become more businessmen. Pelé, who is the best world-known soccer player worldwide, many years ago, Pelé became, and this is what I use in my speech to young Brazilians, obviously Pelé does not play football anymore. He hasn't played for a long time. But what Pelé has done long, long ago, he created a business experience. He created a marketing engagement. He branded himself. He became a brand. As a football, the football's in the past. But Pelé's present is exactly what you said. He's a brand. He's the Coca-Cola of the world of football, period.
Football.
And that's possible. And he's a legend in his own life. And I think that's a learning experience. How can you take forward what you can do? The physical ability of the young is known, but the mental ability of the old has value, right?
Yeah.
So
that's powerful.
So Kumbirai, I want to thank you again. It was delightful sharing with you. I want to congratulate you on all your success, and you can count on me to try to engage you with people here in Brazil and throughout the world. But I do want to mention that obviously Brazil does export football players, soccer players, but Brazil is also one of the largest exporters of agricultural products.
Yeah.
And that is where I see Brazil and Africa and Germany, all right, finding a mutual working point, points for success of any person, of any startup. Because we know, you know, the world is full of people who need literally to eat. And that will never stop. And transforming the resources that we have in Brazil, that exist in Africa, can help create success for a number of persons, companies, and for the relief in poverty we both know still exists.
Tom, I don't know when this is going to go out, but in April, there's what we call Food Logistica. It's one of the biggest agricultural events in the world. So if you have anyone within your network who is looking at exporting into the German market from Brazil, right, and they have a product, food and beverage product, that they would like to get into the ecosystem, please, it's a free invitation. Okay. I can then be able, if it's done in time, I can be able to assist them in getting into the market during the Food Logistica in April. So Very good. Just wanted to add that.
Well, just for you to know, I published today.
So we still have some time. So anyone, if there's anyone out there from Brazil looking to enter the German market, they can quickly reach out to me so that we get their products at the Food Logistica and we can help them.
Very good. Well, thank you again, Kumbirai. I want to thanks for your excellent experience here. All right. And certainly in the future, we're going to be back talking some more about football, food, whatever. One of the things I do want to talk in the future that you mentioned is the part of craftsmanship, apprenticeship.
Okay.
That's going to be a whole different conversation. We'll be back to talk about that, okay?
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you. And for our listeners, you can also find more about Kumbirai Chipadza, and his name is Kumbirai. The last name is Chipadza. You'll find him on LinkedIn and also on DeutschConnect.com. That's Deutsch, DeutschConnect.com. I'd like to thank you, our audience, and our sponsor, Focus MI Market Intelligence. Focus MI specializes in market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. More about them on their site, www.focusmi.com. Talk to Brazil podcast can be found on all major podcast platforms. So remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Tom Reaoch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.